Today we have a first ever mother-daughter duo who started their own company, June Wren Flowers, navigated a pandemic, and Margaux even delivered a baby right in the middle of it all. Margaux Bartosch and Michelle Bolton have a lifelong love of farming, flowers, and caring for the land. Their business, June Wren Flowers, is a sustainably grown specialty cut flower company for people and pollinators living in the Memphis area, whose hope is to inspire city dwellers to fall in love with nature again. This local, female-owned, mother-daughter company has learned patience, timing, and pivoted in countless ways this past year. In this episode, we hear the story behind June Wren Flowers and learn what flowers, farming, and nature can teach us about patience, endurance, resilience, and rest. So let's get to it and meet Margaux and Michelle in the green chair. Michelle, thank you guys so much for being with us here in the green chair. This is exciting. I also love our additions.
Yes,
you guys couldn't. Yeah, you couldn't come here and not
No,
and then look at the. Yeah, you made our set so much better. Thank you, though. I'm really honored. This is exciting for me. I know we're friends, and this is just a really huge honor for us to have you here with us. So thank you so much.
Yeah, happy to be here too.
Yes, fun. Okay, so let's get to know you. I know not everybody knows your story. Not everybody knows your history. I want to talk about June Wren. I want to talk about y'all's backstory. Born in Memphis,
yes,
right? Both of you.
Born and raised.
Nice. Born and raised in Memphis. And then June Wren Flowers, right?
Yes.
So how does this get started? I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic. You started a business. You had a baby in the middle of this. This is
many times.
Many times I've had babies while trying to start a business.
Right.
Okay, tell us the story. I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think both of us come from just a line of green thumbs. Our family loves nature. Her dad, who is still alive, Papaw, has a huge collection of yard art. His garden is impressive every summer, and so he just has a passion for it. And so obviously handed that to my mom, and then growing up, we had a farm, and it was really just nature's playground. But I did not really grow to appreciate flowers until my early 20s, and I was working at Garden District. And everyone's like, oh, Garden District, it must have been so glamorous. And it was, but it was labor intensive, and I had to develop a really good work ethic there, but learned a ton about the floral industry and a different side of the floral industry. So doing really high-end events. I was kind of the dumpster diver. Like I would crawl in the dumpster and like pull out all the flowers and be like, how can we use these more? And so from there, just kind of dug a little bit deeper and was like, what is herbalism? What is plant medicine? And then that kind of snowballed. And then moved to Northern California, went to California School of Herbal Studies, lived on an intentional community with a bunch of elders. And from there, I was like, I experienced nature in a different way.
That's
plants and flowers kind of as a healer. And I think I had like a spiritual, not awakening, but very much a spiritual moment with nature.
I love that.
And it was probably about a year just kind of being isolated, but not isolated. And then just kept diving deeper into flowers and had an opportunity to drive up the coast to Washington State to work with Florette. I mean, she's huge now, has her own show. But back then she was a tiny micro farm and was just a wealth of knowledge and really just kind of set me on the path that I'm on today with my mom. And we came back home, or I came back to the South, and here we are with June Wren Flowers, just growing seasonal cut flowers and vegetables, and also focusing on interior and exterior containers for people. So just really bringing nature into everyday spaces.
I love that.
Is what we love.
And didn't you say you had like early childhood memories too of like
Oh, yeah.
running through flowers?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we had
That's what she was saying.
Just, I mean, acres and acres of sunflower fields. I mean, granted, they were planted for dove hunting, but it was just majestic. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen just fields of sunflowers, but it's just
happy,
yeah,
turning towards the sunlight.
Yeah.
If you ever pass a sunflower field, they're trying to find the sun. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, constantly.
Okay, so where did it start for you?
Well, I grew up in the country, actually. I'm just north of Memphis, and my parents both worked, and they gave me the decision, you can clean the house while we're at work, or you can work in the garden, and I'm like, work in the garden. So I started that, and I didn't always love it. I didn't love the sweat bees and the heat and all of that, but I learned so much. And then when I had children and moved to the city, new marriage, new family, and when I'd get a little extra money, I would hop to Dan West, the local little old nursery that's been around forever, and I'd buy another rose bush and another rose bush and another rose bush. And then not until I went to my dad's house after he retired and had more time, I looked in his yard, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he has that same thing I have, a love of flowers. So that's kind of where it started. And then I have aunts that I would go to their homes in the country in the summer, and I just remember the daffodil bulbs and the other things, and I would like make forts in the plants and the trees, and plants do something for me that it doesn't do for everybody for sure. Yeah. But like my senses fire off when I'm at a plant nursery, and it's fun to go with Margaux. We're so different. But when we both go together to a nursery, very often, like we can just, like our senses are alive.
You just
it's really fun.
Yeah, it really is.
My husband, not so much, but like us for sure.
Yeah, that's really fun. Okay, so how did you decide now is the time to start June Wren Flowers? Like what was kind of the propelling force in that?
I would say the propelling force in that is just that we needed something to make money. Yeah. And it was just time. Like, I had kind of set that goal and that vision about 6 years ago, and then babies kept happening, so we kind of kept hitting pause on it. And then we finally decided, like, this is the year to do it. And then when the pandemic hit, as everyone had to do, everyone had to pivot and change their business model. And so farmers markets were really our outlet to sell, and then once we didn't feel comfortable doing that, that's when we had to pivot again. We're like, okay.
Weddings were canceled.
I mean, everything was canceled.
Yeah.
And so we put our heads down, and just worked hard and just made money where we could, and we realized, okay, everyone is at home right now, and they want their containers to be beautiful.
Yeah. And they have time.
And
they have time to do it.
Yeah.
Or they don't have time, and they want us to come in and teach them a little bit. And so my mom really thrives in that area. I mean, working with your hands and making an entrance go from just drab to like colorful.
Or sometimes dead to alive.
Yeah. I mean, as you know, just plants really enhance a space.
Yeah.
And so we kind of ran with that, and we were able to make enough money and save up some money that we eventually bought a mobile greenhouse truck.
I love that.
Her name's June, and she'll be making her debut here pretty soon.
It's the cutest little truck too. I love it. It's just
I
this
know.
cute little. Are you going to paint it, or it's just this cute little?
We're working
green-
on it.
Yes.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's really fun.
Yeah, it's a great little truck.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about kind of what you're doing. I mean, I know you guys have different arms, if you will, of this business, and then kind of what that looks like.
Right.
So, a lot of people don't know this, but flowers are seasonal. And so now daffodils are in season.
Yeah.
And so we really want to focus on the seasonal flowers. And so we will continue supporting that seasonal movement and offering those seasonal cut flowers that we grow, and hope to support the farmers around the area, because there are some great farmers around the area that really focus on the zinnias, the sunflowers. There's these guys up north that grow incredible tuberose, which are even more fragrant than the daffodils. So we'll be selling those from our truck as well as our own flowers. So there's a flower aspect. And then we have about 3,500 vegetable starts. So all different types of vegetables, from radishes to onions to leeks to all different types of heirloom tomatoes that we will be selling. They'll be ready probably March 20th. And so we'll be selling those from our truck, just popping up in different locations.
That's really neat.
So that is really kind of my baby. And then on the other side of that, we do this container gardening, or like greenscaping, whatever you want to call it. so residential and commercial. Like we just did a fun job with the Raw Girls downtown.
Yes, I saw that.
So theirs was an exterior plant job, but we also focus on interior, which is really fun as well.
Yeah. One aspect that I've really enjoyed is I'll come do someone's container gardening, and I can teach them how to do it themselves later if they want to do that too. And they know what they like, but they don't know how to get there. So it's been really fun to do workshops, and we hope to do more workshops, a lot of workshops from June, and help people just learn how to do it, and help them figure out what they love and what they don't, and the colors they like, and the texture and all of that. It's just super fun.
I love that. And I've loved, like, there's such an educational piece to this too. I love you guys do that really well with, you were doing that Plant Speak series on Instagram. But it's very educational, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know everybody in the world, I mean, I did some of that stuff, like just you step out of your comfort zone a little bit because you kind of have to because it's a pandemic. But
Absolutely.
it's fun, and it was very like I remember just like watching y'all's stuff being like, oh, that's good to know. Like I need to, and it's very good to be reminded of. I think we live in a culture that tells us we can have strawberries every day of the year. But that's not when they're in season, right? And so it's really beautiful to think of these flowers and different plants that are in and out of seasons.
Inevitably, someone will call and ask for dahlias in November, and we're like, oh, we don't have any right now because of the season.
But I hope that we can continue to educate, and obviously COVID makes things a little tricky, but we definitely want to continue with that education because people are hungry for the knowledge, and people want to work with their hands and get their hands dirty because, I mean, getting your hands in the dirt, it does something to your brain. Like it releases these endorphins, but it's very calming, and nature has a way of subtly bringing you back to yourself.
I can find, like during the pandemic, when a lot of us were feeling uneasy or a little bit fearful, and or watching the news or reading or just being isolated from your friends, and I would go outside and I would get my hands dirty in the dirt, and I would just move one plant from another spot or just play in the dirt, and I found myself just like it grounds me in a way. Just completing a task is amazing for me too. Just nurturing plants is something that really grounded me as well. So I hope to spread that and teach other people to how that they can do that in their life as well.
That's good. That's really good. And y'all touched on it, and kind of my main focus for our conversation today is seasons and just kind of what we can learn. I just love, you guys know me enough to know that I'm just totally geeking out right now because I love plants. You brought me a cactus, thank you. Well, not me a cactus, but you brought our set a cactus. And so I love learning from plants because I think there is so much to learn as I've kind of learned from you and others of just the rhythms of life and just these seasons of life. And so I'd love for you guys to lean into lessons as you're, I know this is your profession, so what kind of are lessons that nature has taught you that you can kind of share with us, particularly in regards to seasons?
Right. When I put in my head, when I knew we were going to do this interview, there's things that I know innately about plants, and then when we started discussing it, and then you put a pencil and to paper, and you just look at it, you're like, oh my gosh, that so relates to a human being. It's like the resiliency of a plant, the resiliency of a human. When the conditions aren't right for a plant, or a human being, things get hard, and a plant will searches for light, and for me, when I'm feeling low or uneasy, I need light, I need brightness, I need truth. Margaux and I were laughing. A plant doesn't want to be anything else other than what it is.
That's good.
So that's amazing.
That's like a major life lesson.
Right, like a cactus is a cactus. It has thorns. It's not fluffy like a fern. So like that lesson that you can pass on to your child as well.
And it doesn't have this self-limiting, it's like, I'm going to stop growing. No, it continues to grow and thrive.
Right. With me, for the seasons of life, I'm 57, and like a lot of women, unfortunately, I found my identity. Early on, I was a wife, and then I was full-on mom, and then as the children got older, I found that I didn't really shift like I should have. I learned that I got kind of bored, and I stopped growing, and it was so wonderful when Margaux came up with this idea, actually, and it is Margaux's idea. felt so alive. And even my husband, who is such a passionate person and has so many hobbies, I was a little annoyed with that all these years. And he's our biggest cheerleader. And I'm like, I'm so happy because I don't have to, I'm not a, like, it's adult to adult now, not mother to child. And I don't have to stay home and just kind of be bored and wait. If they're happy, I'm happy, that kind of thing. No, like I need to blossom. I need to bloom. And I feel like my God wants us to do that. So like, goodness gracious, I can be anything I want. And life has just gotten a lot more exciting. And on the summer months when it's really hot and we have a lot to do, at 4 o'clock I am popping up. It's dark, and Chuck's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like,
She's talking about 4 a.m.
Right. Sorry. I'm like, I've got to get the truck loaded before it gets too hot. I've got these jobs, and I'm just really energized, and I'm so thankful for it. So this season in my life, I say the second season in my life, I can do pretty much anything I want to do if I just am willing to be vulnerable and willing to learn.
That's really good. That's really good. And I love too, you touched on, Margaux, like even farmers have these like seasons where they work their tails off, right? Like they're just cultivating, growing, and then they have to rest.
Yeah.
And I think I would love for you to kind of hone in on that, because I think that's a key piece.
Yeah, so on the farming side, so these months, really November, December, January, February can be really dark. But as the plants in the fields go to rest, that's kind of when the farmers and the humans start to go to rest, and it's your time to sit back. It can be really introspective work to plan for the seasons ahead. And so if we just kind of tune into nature and what these plants and bulbs are doing, so all the aerial parts of the plants, everything above ground dies off, it goes dormant, and it sends its energy to the roots to really feed the roots below. And so if we just kind of tune into what are those plants doing, what is nature doing, and do that ourselves, because we all need more rest.
Right.
And I think this past year in the pandemic kind of forced us into like that place. It was kind of like a jolt to shock to a lot of people, but farmers have been doing it for centuries. And so it's a much slower pace, and I think that's been one of the biggest lessons for me, at least, is just having a little more patience. In nature, I'm very much like my father, and I can be very intense. And so also just nature just teaching me just to soften my edges, and you can still have this beautiful structure. I mean, just this plant alone has this amazing structure, and it is stable, but without being too rigid.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you have to remain flexible in life, because change is inevitable. But I think it's just really cool that farmers in that profession, you were kind of forced to stop and slow down. And then say like end of February, March, they start gearing up for their season ahead, and it's just like on. But you feel it. You kind of see the ground starting to buzz with life, like end of March. I mean, our zone that we live in, we're zone 7B, and one day it can be 70, and the next day it can be like snow flurry, so it's a little wacky.
Which is like, we're kind of wacky.
Yeah, totally.
Together especially.
But I think I love this profession that I've been set on, because it is making me slow down. And I know that it's making me be a better mother and partner and hopefully daughter.
Right. A better human.
Yeah.
Even if you stop and you after you're around plants and you learn a little about them and you learn how they work and how they grow, then you take a hike, you start noticing the leaves and the shape of the leaves and the color of the bark and what the bark looks like on the tree. And you can't do that if you're hurrying and you're rushed, but it just makes you value. Nature makes us value those things, especially plants. It's just a wonderland if you allow yourself to see it.
Yeah.
And in this world, in the city, where there's just a lot of urban, you can bring the plants into your home, and I experienced that on a Margaux way.
Yeah. You know, Margaux, you said something that just stuck with me, is you said, you know, during this pandemic, you noticed that all these people were wanting to learn how, for the first time ever, like, okay, now I want to do a vegetable garden, or now I wanted to. And one of the things you said I thought was so beautiful was, you said, I think we're needing to bring beauty at a time when we desperately need it. And I thought that was so good, because I think people now, I'm finding that people are really open to like learning and growing, and I think that's really, really neat.
Yeah, I think there is just so much heartache in trauma and, I mean, on a personal level, but as a collective, like there is just, it has been a very traumatic year. And so if we can just bring a little bit more beauty and a little bit more joy through flowers and plants, then we're doing our job.
Right.
And I mean, honestly, like I think I probably have a plant in every single room in my house or flowers, and it just lightens the space.
Right.
It fills the space, and not that there was like a void there, but it just like, you're like, like when you walk into the greenhouse, you're like, it just lifts your mood. Like there's this veil that's been lifted.
Right.
And so we just want everyone, especially in our community, just to experience that. And if we can do that with June popping up here and there, then I think we've done our job.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a really fun job because it's like instant happy.
Yeah.
When I'm in the middle of the pandemic, I could do someone's container and not get near any human.
Yeah.
And plant it up and sweat and
Yeah.
all. And then when they see it, they're so happy,
They are so
and it's
happy.
so nice. It's so fun.
That's really fun.
And it's an instant bond with those people, and they'll be texting me, asking me how to water it and all. It's an instant connection to people as well. So it's been such a joy for us, for myself especially,
And a lot of
to
people
do this.
are intimidated by the plants. But I'm
Yeah.
like, worst case scenario, like your plant dies, like start over. Like
$7 plant. It's not meant maybe to live forever.
like, because there is a thing as like annuals versus perennials
Right,
and
right.
evergreens. So
Yeah.
yeah, we don't want people to be intimidated.
Yeah, it's
by
not a
plants and
failure
flowers.
if the plant
Yeah.
dries up. We're not ever going to shame them. It's just like, let's just try again with it.
I like that.
yeah.
And that kind of leans into, I was just thinking of kind of like one of the pieces I love about this is just making it super, super practical and applicable to those listening is like, okay, well, what can we do? How can we do this? I would love like any kind of practical lessons you guys have learned along the way that you could leave people with today. I guess, granted, we can look to nature. I think that's a key one. And finding the joy and the beauty in these little things. I mean, I think that's key even through this pandemic is like finding joy in simple things. I think we learned like, you kind of condense like what Tommy and I used to consider a date night, right? Is like it's like so basic right now.
Right.
We're like, we didn't need the whole like dinner and a night out. I'm like,
no.
I just needed like intentional time with you, right? And so I think you kind of learn those things through seasons like this.
Yeah.
And so any kind of practical lessons you guys would love to leave us with today, or anything that has just stood out for you throughout your journey.
I think you touched on that about the flexibility, just being flexible, not being so rigid, being flexible.
I like that.
Knowing that being individual is great. You don't have to be like everybody else. We're all different. We all grow to different heights and different sizes and different spirits.
I love that. I love that. I really love that you said it's all temporary. I thought that was a really good perspective too. Is just to remember like seasons change, plants don't last forever. Like everything is so temporary. I thought that was
Everything
a good.
is so temporary, but to also recognize our interconnectedness, I think, is really important. I find that when I work with plants and flowers, like it's just a time for me just to quiet down. And I think that our lives are so loud and so busy to find that 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever you need, just to find that quiet time where you can just either work with your hands or sit in prayer, whatever it is, I think is really important. And for me, that medium has been either my yoga practice or working with plants. And I think it's really important.
Yeah. I like that.
One thing the moms that are out there, they're empty nesters, there's something really funny about being able to nurture a plant or plant a seed and watch it grow and water it and care for it like you do the babies that are gone, the children that are left. There's just something about that nurturing aspect for me that is really fed through plants outside in the garden.
Yeah,
that nurturing.
I really love that.
Like you do a pet, but plants can be the same.
That's really, really neat. And I love, I want to say, Margaux, you were talking about you were saying it's all temporary, but also learning patience through the process. And I think that there's something really beautiful we can learn. And taking a cue from nature, right? Learning when to rest, learning when to grow, learning when to just kind of just taking cues and looking outside. I mean, I think there's something beautiful about like, this is like just being outside in nature and creation. You touched on how spiritual it is. Like it is. Like we're all so interconnected.
Yeah, like there's this term that forest bathing. I don't know if you've heard that, but yeah, it's I think big over in Europe, but literally just walking out in nature. That's what they're calling forest bathing, and just how it's having this just positive effect on people's lives. And also just walking barefoot on the ground, like how it's called grounding. But it really is, it has a really grounding, peaceful effect on,
I love that.
yeah, on your life.
The word wonder, W-O-N-D-E-R, is something that I think my 3 children have, and I'm so excited about that. I love the fact that they have a lot of wonder in the stars or in nature, but I hope that with what we do with plants helps people to see through a lens of wonder. Like when they do the forest bathing that you're talking about, just being able to see the leaves and the colors and the different greens. There's so many different greens that unless you really start thinking about it, you wouldn't notice.
Yeah, that's really good. Thank you guys for being here with us. This is so exciting. I have so loved having you here. And now you spoiled us because I don't know if we can ever go back from not having this like crazy cool set.
We'll try to help you out on that.
Anytime. That's what we do.
Well, thank you guys so much. I so appreciate you guys being
Jessica.
here. And that is a wrap for our Green Chair conversation with Margaux and Michelle. Thank you so much for being here with us. Remember, today's conversation doesn't have to end here. I would love to connect with you and hear your thoughts about today's conversation or even topics or people you want to hear from. So feel free to send me an email. Also, we would love for you to take a moment and encourage someone today by sharing this conversation with a friend. You can watch any previous conversations at hopechurchmemphis.com/GCC or on YouTube, as well as listen on any podcast apps as well. We love you guys, and I'll see you next week.